For more on this, let's bring in Ms. Lansky and Partners President Lee Carter and Outkick host and Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren. Great to have both of you with us. Lee, I'm going to start with you just to break down these polls. I mean, I'm not surprised at the issues that Republicans are focusing on and Democrats are focusing on. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the swing states and a fringe margin of people. So ultimately, how does this play out in the states that matter, the counties that matter? Which issue wins?
I think at the end of the day, the economy is the #1 issue with a majority of voters nationwide. And it's the only issue that's with a majority of voters. And it's across the board and it's felt across the country. And Kamala Harris just does not poll as well when it comes to the economy. The other issue is when you look at democracy, as much as everyone says that democracy, the fight for the threat to democracy is a Democratic issue, and that's really favors Harris. When you look at the polling, it's about split who you think is more favorable on democracy, because just as many Republicans are concerned about the threat to democracy, free speech, and other things as Democrats. So at the end of the day, when you look at this poll, it isn't a good story for Democrats.
Yeah, so Tomi, I look at these polls and I'm like, you have Donald Trump winning on 2 of the top issues, the economy and immigration by about 10% each. And Kamala Harris, yeah, she wins on abortion, but the polls in essence say these two candidates are tied. This makes no sense to me. How do you figure this race is playing out when you have top issues, tight polls, but Donald Trump is winning on the issues that the American voter cares about?
Well, I think it says something that the polls are actually going this well for Donald Trump. We know that both against Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, he was not doing as well as he's doing today in these head-to-head matchups. So I take polls with a grain of salt. I care more about what the American people care about, and it's going to come down to economy, border, and crime. Let's be honest. You have to have a certain amount of luxury and privilege in your life to name democracy as your #1 issue. And even then, we're talking about January 6th on the one side, which is their repeated cry. On the other side, you have the very real issues of censorship, of free speech, of freedom, really, for us to be able to express ourselves in an open forum. And that's something that Democrats have been railing against and have been going to great lengths to stifle free speech. So, yes, democracy is important. We hold it as an ideal, but ultimately it's a luxury. And it's a luxury that people that can't afford eggs and milk don't have.
Tim Walz was called out after saying there's no guarantee of free speech for misinformation. So listen to his response here.
Look, the First Amendment is foundational. It's something I spent my whole life, the vice president, and I think most Americans are clear on this. The point being on this, we're seeing censorship coming in the form of book bannings in different places. We're seeing it attempts in schools. The issue on this is the hate speech and the protected hate speech. Speech that's aimed at creating violence, speech that's aimed at threats to individuals. And that's what we're talking about in this. And the decision on that, society decides on a lot of this. The idea of someone going on and threatening someone's life or a child's life online.
That's actually not what they're talking about. Lee, when it comes down to it, basically, if you get on any platform and you question anything, for example, with the hurricane disaster relief and FEMA, if you question where the allocation of the funds was going and why FEMA wasn't fully funded in the right way, it was labeled misinformation. To me, this comes down to who is the arbiter of what is misinformation.
And that's the really heart of the matter, because can you question where these funds are going? Can you question whether or not you should get a vaccine? Can you question whether the pro-Palestinian marchers are doing the right thing? Can you question what hate speech is? Can you question the government itself? What they're saying right now is if you don't agree with us, we could tell you that that's misinformation. And that is censorship, and that should scare everybody. When we lose a free internet, when we lose the right to free speech, when we lose all of the freedoms that we enjoy, we could be in big trouble, because who is the arbiter? And right now, you've got a whole bunch of people who align on one side and say that that is the truth. We saw it happen in the election before in 2020. We're seeing it happen again now. We can't afford to have people not be able to question what's going on and be told what to think. That is not American. That is not freedom. That's not what we're all about, and it should concern every American.
You know, Tomi, this is authoritarian, right? They don't want you to express yourself because they have a radical vision for America, a radical transformation of America, and most Americans would go, I really don't like that. I'm going to call you out. I'm going to question you. And the way they stop that to get everyone to comply is, you better watch out. You better not criticize us. We might actually throw you in jail. These are Tim Walz was actually saying what all Democrats have been saying for over 10 years.
Right, and they're using this misinformation, disinformation narrative as a mechanism to shut people up and to keep them quiet. And this is nothing new because it was very effective in 2020. You couldn't question BLM riots. You couldn't question COVID protocols. You couldn't question masks or vaccines. And now, moving forward, you can't question the leaders of your government and where they're allocating your hard-earned tax dollars. You can't question FEMA's response to hurricanes. That's a fundamental of being an American, is that you are allowed to question your leaders and you're allowed to question your government. So by passing all of this off as misinformation or disinformation, it's just a way for them to hide behind these words and try to hide all of the work that they're doing behind the scenes. The American people have a right to question their government. And if they're really concerned about upholding democracy, that should be something that they're also concerned with protecting. Unfortunately, they're able to hide behind their fear-mongering, and that's what's gotten them this far because they have no policies to fall back on. And that really is the essence of their campaign.
In the last minute we have left, Lee, I want to come back to you because the NBC poll has both candidates neck and neck at 48%. But on Sunday, Kristen Welker admitted that Kamala Harris has lost any advantage that she's had. Many people don't think the polls are that accurate, that he actually, former President Trump, has a larger advantage than what is coming up in these polls. So how is this setting up we're 3 weeks out now. It's getting really close.
Look, I think that the way the polls are neck and neck right now really favors Donald Trump. At this same time in 2020, Biden was ahead by 9 points. At this same time in 2016, Clinton was ahead by 6.7 points. Generally speaking, Trump overperforms polls. And it's somewhere between 1 and 3 points. And so I think that advantage really does go to Trump. And when you look at the swing states in particular, there's only one swing state right now that Kamala Harris is ahead in the average, and that's Wisconsin. The rest of the swing states is a clean sweep in the polling for Donald Trump. And I think at the end of the day, he generally outperforms the polls. I'm not sure if it's because of the shy voter, because people just aren't sure that they can do it. But at the end of the day, I think Trump is going to outperform the polls, and this is going to be a good election for him.
All right.